saying the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Sorry. I think I had my mic off. Now it's on. All right. Can we start with roll call, please?
Mr. Cummings?
Here.
Ms. McGuire?
Here.
Mr. Spencer?
I'm here.
Mr. Pullman, absent. Mr. Sutton, here. Mr. Wusterbarth?
Present.
Ms. Richards?
Here. Okay, are there any agenda additions this evening, Tammy?
No.
No? Okay.
I have one.
All right.
I would like to add the Restoration Advisory Board and Chain of Command for discussion and other. I believe number...
Number six. Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay, is, yeah, sorry, my brain just went blank. Yeah, we have to vote on that, sorry. Everybody good with that agenda addition? Okay, is there a motion to approve that?
I'll move. I'll move to adopt the agenda with the addition.
Okay, there's a motion by Spencer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the first of two public comments. During the first public comment, you have 4 minutes to speak, and it would need to be on an agenda item, and you do need to fill out a card. Do we have any cards for the first public comment?
She
No?
grabbed one. I don't have any.
Okay. All right. Again, we do have a second public comment time at the end of the board meeting. At that time, you can speak on any topic that's not on the agenda or on the agenda. Okay. This evening for consent agenda, first we have approval of the regular meeting minutes of September 12th. Are there any comments or corrections on that?
Yes. Sorry. Mr. Palmer sent me some information because he couldn't be here today that he wanted to make sure was put in here. On the minutes, Mr. Palmer supported a motion by Mr. Spencer to postpone approval of minutes to the next meeting. Approval of minutes, regular minutes, August 8th, 2022 with corrections presented. Regular minutes, August 22, 2022 with corrections presented. That's the way you'd like it stated. Josh, I can send you an email afterwards.
For the postpone, was on there.
The way he wanted it.
The way you
in
wanted
the
it
minutes.
worded, I guess.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
And then under the payment of bills for the janitorial, this is all in consent agenda. Payment of bills from the prior meeting. Janitorial fees are still included in awning. They're working on getting that fixed. In the meantime, the VA continues to pay rent to the township. Those are the two things he wanted me to state, so.
Steve, I'm having trouble hearing you. Is
Yeah,
your
I didn't
mic
hear
on?
the last part either.
Had one other note under consent agenda. He noted under payment of bills that the janitorial fees are still included for awning, that they are working through getting that fixed, and in the meantime, the VA continues to pay the rent to the township.
Oh, that's under when we start talking about prepaids,
Yep.
not necessarily the regular meeting minutes. Okay. All right, so were there any other comments on the regular meeting minutes from September 12th? Okay, hearing none, moving on to finance.
I think that's spelled wrong.
Define that.
Under the public comment area, there's Miss Brennowell came and spoke about the Paul Bunyan Fest And that's her, could you spell your name for us real quick, please? Please. Thank you.
All right, so then moving on to finance, we have payment of bills. First, we have the prepaid from September 20th in the amount of $210,522.89. Any questions or comments on those? All right, check run September 27th, we have $6,135.98. Any comments on those? Okay, then we have the CWSRF checking report, $702,782.52. Comment on that at all, or question? DWRF checking report, $19,500. Anything there? CWSRF checking report, $1,129,628.14. Big number. Comments there? Yeah, thanks. Next one is CWSRF checking report, $145. Okay, so there was a couple comments on the September 12th meeting minutes, and then just clarification, Bill indicating there's a check in here that we're still paying basically for janitorial services for the VA clinic, because I'm assuming they have not still gotten their approval?
Yes, they're waiting on the SAMS number,
Okay.
which is pending, and it's typical because of the number change. It's taking longer than usual because they have a high volume of, areas to process.
Okay.
Ours took forever, so I can only imagine someone new, it's going to take a little bit.
Okay. well,
But they're
hopefully
working
that-
on it.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we are receiving the rent from the VA, therefore, we still have to take care of them.
Correct, okay. All right,
And-
so with, sorry.
Josh, I'll send you an email with those corrections as Bill wanted it stated.
All right, with that then, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there support? Support. There's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Ms. McGuire to approve the consent agenda with those couple corrections to the meeting minutes. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wurstabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to subcommittee reports and project updates. We do have Rick Freeman here to do our September 2022 engineering progress report. Oh,
Oh, cheating today,
You're
huh?
gonna sit down. All right.
Get to sit at the big table.
All right, sounds good.
Good evening, everyone. Good progress on everything. Later on in the agenda, we'll have the C2R funding grant document that will need board approval for the $9,691,200 grant that we've been awarded for wrapping up the water main phases that we have going. That grant period is is from 3/3 of 2021 through 10/1 of 2025. There is I think a little contingency on that 10/1 of 25. I believe it's 2 years after the completion of the main projects that are being funded, so that date might fluctuate a little bit as we move forward, depending on when all the projects get wrapped up. And then we'll be getting direction from them on the monthly reporting and disbursement requests that they'll have for it. It'll be similar, we believe, as the DWRF and SRF that we can submit monthly and start getting the township reimbursed for design work and such that was, that has taken place back, like I said, to 3/3 of 2021, so. As far as the phases of the water main, we are on the final list, a very small list of punch list items for last year's Phase 4 project. Oscoda, Green Beach, River Road, that area, and F41. Basically, we're down to just making sure that the grass is growing properly now that we're getting a little bit of moisture. things are starting to green up, and it's grass and not weeds, so we're in good shape there. Phase 3 and 5, which is under construction right now, contractors, both Elmer's on Phase 5, Caterman on Phase 3, they're making really good progress on the main line pipe going in the ground. They are seeing potentially some delays in hydrants. We know there's gonna be a delay probably in meters and meter pits, and then some other, valves and tapping sleeve and valves and all that type of stuff seems to be being slow coming from the suppliers, so they're pushing it off right now, similar to what we heard on the CWSRF project last year, maybe not till next spring. Hopefully that won't be the case. Hopefully things will start coming in, similar to the SRF project, then get them back on schedule. But there is a strong potential that we won't be able to finish up the services and such on those two phases until sometime next spring. Which we will have to monitor the temporary road patches and all that stuff through the winter to make sure we don't have any problems as far as access to the properties and such. The final two pieces of those, phase 6, which is out at Colbath, and then the service line project throughout the township, the remainder of the service line project. Final design is being taken care of right now by Rowe on that, and we'll probably getting those two projects out to bid sometime this winter. So as soon as the weather breaks in the spring, we can get those things bid and under construction. And we want to try to speed those up a little bit so that, again, the manufacturers can start getting the material in so we don't have delays on those next year. The sanitary sewer project, making good progress on wrapping that up. They were able to pretty much wrap things up out at the lagoon site. They got the valves that needed to be replaced, taken care of, and they're finishing up a few of the pump stations and coordinating of the controls, working closely with F&B operations on making sure all those controls are speaking to each other properly. And then the last project I'll give an update on tonight is the Phase 3 trail. Project is out for advertising and bids right now. Bid opening is scheduled for October 7th. Hopefully we get some decent bids on that. And with that, we will be issuing a notice to proceed to the contractor as of November 1st so that they can start clearing and be out in front of that, get that done by the time the snow melts in the spring, so we don't disturb the rattlesnake through that process.
Very serious.
Other than that, that's pretty much all I've got. Any questions?
Are they ordering the materials in advance to get those, so that they get them started rolling there, or?
Yeah, both Elmer's and Caterman, I'll say they did do a pretty good job at ordering things before the contracts were finalized. They hedged their bets a little bit, and most of the contractors are doing that now. They're trying to get these supplies ordered in their yards, so it's sitting there. So we can't tell them to order things in advance, because they're doing it at their own risk if, for some reason, if their bids are not followed through. But yeah, they're hedging their bets right now.
I know that we've approved some money for some meter pits in the
Yes.
past. Is that something that we should go ahead and try to get some ordered for us as well now?
That was for these projects, the 150 that we ordered a couple of or was approved a couple of meetings ago. And actually, those are the ones that we're hearing that we might not get those until April. But we are also lining up the ones that we need for next year right now. And more likely than not, we'll be putting forth to the board a request to order those. And with the C2R2, we'll be able to ask for reimbursement on that stuff, even on those advanced projects, yet this winter, so,
So we should be looking for that in the next meeting or two?
hopefully. So.
No, great job, Rick. I see a lot of progress with the water going in.
Yeah, we've
Surprised
had a
how fast.
lot of property owner interest this time around. We've had a lot of them calling about, how they go about getting their name on the list to hook up, so I think we're gonna have a good, fair number of hookups, on these two phases.
I know I had a couple calls on Fullerton, so when I went out and looked at it, they were already done.
They're already done. Yeah, I swung by there before the meeting tonight, and the excavator was moving out of the area, so.
Yeah.
Do you think, because we're going to have to postpone some of it, that we'll have additional, like, mobilization charges that they're going to try to pass on to us, or no?
I don't think so. We've been talking to them about it, and I think they knew well enough in advance that there was gonna be those issues. And again, it's gonna be kind of a different phase of the project. Once we move to, services, it's the more of their plumber subcontractor. So the big equipment will be out of here and they shouldn't have to remobilize some of that.
Made any the ORV access at various locations, made any progress on that?
I believe Todd had conversations with Bruce Bolin, and he provided suggestions on how the township should move forward on that. I think it was identifying specific road locations, and then that request, I might be speaking a little off on this, but coming from the board. So Todd and I will be working on those locations. The ORV crossing out at Old Orchard, just west of the entrance. The old connection to the trailhead. I've had communication with the Forestry Service and initially said, oh, you'll have to go through the same process that you did for the trail, a 8 to 12 month NEPA process to open that back up again. And in the same day, I got an email back saying, no, we're actually gonna be doing some lumbering in there, and we will be able to do it with a category exclusion, which will shorten the process up to a couple of months, so I need to circle back with Tammy and Todd and Al out at the campground to see how we want to proceed on that. And then we still got to get, Bruce Bolin was okay with it as long as there wasn't a safety issue, so.
So we're probably gonna be hearing more about that in the next couple of meetings
I
as well?
would think the ORV crossing out there, you'll probably be hearing something about that, probably at one of the meetings in October.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Okay, moving on then to the superintendent's report. First on is the C2R2 grant agreement.
Okay, your packet contains a grant agreement for the awarded C2R2 funds from Eagle. This grant in the amount of $9,691,000 ensures the township's current and final water main phases completion and requires township board approval. I would ask that the board approve the superintendent to execute the grant agreement with Eagle. You all received communication, and I'm hoping that clarifies any legal questions you might have.
Okay. Does anybody have any additional questions, or are we ready to act?
I just want to thank Tammy, Rick, and Sue Aller for their hard work in getting this grant for us.
Yeah. You're here.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. I guess I just had one question. It points out 50%, I think, of participation has to be in place. Are we pretty confident on that?
Yeah, that's what I was just reporting on, is
Yeah.
that for phase 3, so for phase 3, 5, and 6, next summer's project out of Colbath, yes, we anticipate probably, right now, initial numbers are around 80%.
Okay, I guess I didn't hear a percentage. I just heard
Well, I
say that
didn't
more.
have- I
all right.
didn't-
I heard more were going to participate
Yes.
than
Yeah,
like on loud
we're
and
having
stuff, but.
a real, part of the selling point this time around is that, again, that they're, again, it's all inclusive, no cost to the residents,
Right.
and all that, so.
Okay. All right, with that, any additional questions or a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the superintendent to execute the C2R2 grant agreement with Eagle.
Support by Cummings.
There's a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wurstabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. All right, moving on to row engineering invoices. Tammy?
Your packet contains the following listed invoices from Row Engineering for services rendered. These invoices require Township Board approval.
Okay, so there's a few here. The first one is invoice 104926 for the expiration trail in the amount of $687.50. Are there any questions on that, since Rick is sitting right here? Or is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion that we approve row invoice number 104926 for the Iosco Exploration Trail in the amount of $687.50 to be paid out of 101,751,880, period 572.
Okay, and then support.
Support, Sutton.
There's a motion by Mr. Wusterbarth and support by Mr. Sutton for invoice 104926. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to invoice 105027 for as-needed services. The amount on that is $465. Any questions, or are we ready to approve that?
I'll make a motion to approve invoice number 105,027 in the amount of $465 from account 101-299-801.000.
Support by Cummings.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Cummings for invoice 105027. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, sorry, I was looking at JD. Sorry. Okay, yeah. All right. Invoice 105167 for wastewater pump station improvements. That amount is $44,237.50. Any questions on that? Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve invoice number 105,167 for the wastewater pump station improvements to be paid from the CWSRF fund after reimbursement is available in the amount of $44,237.50.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Ms. McGuire for invoice 105167. Roll call, please.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Next is invoice 105168. That's for wastewater system improvements, Phase 5. The amount on that is $2,777.50. Looks like we're from the C2R2 there. Any questions or comments, or is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve invoice number 105,168 for Phase 5 water system improvements from the C2R2 fund after final directions from Eagle on the C2R2 reimbursement process and the township receiving the funds from Eagle in the amount of $2,777.50.
Support, Sutton.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton to approve invoice 105168. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Next is invoice 105169 for water system improvements, Phase 3, in the amount of $11,627.50. Any discussion, or is there a motion to approve?
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion, we approve invoice number 10569 for the water system improvements, Phase 3, in the amount of $11,627.52 from the C2R2 after the final direction from Eagle and reimbursement process.
Support, Wusterbarth.
Can we get that motion be amended to the invoice number 105,169?
Oh, did I say the wrong one?
You
Sorry.
forgot the
I
one,
think
the
you
second
said
one.
Forgot something there.
I just didn't want to pay the wrong
No,
invoice,
yeah, well,
you know.
thanks.
Okay. All right, there's a motion by Ms. McGuire and support by Mr. Wusterbarth to approve invoice 105169. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. All right, moving on to the next agenda item, pump station replacement project pay request number 10.
Your packet contains the 10th pay request and the pump station replacement project in the amount of $620,520.87, leaving a total of $866,425.72 remaining for this project. I would ask that the board consider approving the 10th pay request from RCL Construction in the amount of $620,520.87 to be paid from the CWSRF checking after reimbursement is requested and deposited into the township's account.
Okay, are there any questions or discussion? Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll move that we approve the pay request to RCL Construction in the amount of $620,520.87 to be paid from CWSRF checking after the reimbursement is requested and deposited into the township's account.
Support, Worcester Barth.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Worcesterbarth for project pay request number 5. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to pump station 8 pipe repair pay request.
Right. Your packet contains a request for payment for repair services on lift station number 8 provided by RCL Construction in the amount of $19,018. This issue occurred during the current ongoing pump station project and needed immediate repair to keep it running, a Band-Aid, if you will. Unfortunately, lift station 8 was not included in the upgrade plan and cannot be submitted for CWSRF funds. I would ask that the board approve the repair costs in the amount of $19,018 to RCL Construction to be paid from Fund 590-000-801.000.
Has the money been appropriated in that account?
Yes.
So it was budgeted?
It wasn't budgeted for, no, but it is a repair.
But we've already, but, okay.
What caused the,
During working on the current CWSRF project, in working on certain stations, we had to shut other stations down and then reroute things through adjacent stations. So while we were working on, I believe it was pump station 7 at this location, under the CWSRF, we were running things through pump station 8, and it was found that that station currently only services the apartment complex there, even though it was designed to handle, in the future possibly, more stuff from the F-41 in that area. The condition of it was such that it was not able to handle the additional flow. So we had to go in and actually make some piping repairs inside the station so that it would hold together while we had pump station 7 and 6 down, actually. So that we could do those repairs and not cause any backup in sewage or whatever. So this pump station was going to be in the next round of priorities that came out of the SAW report that was done in 2016, 2017. And it's just that it's now, we're 8 years later, and the condition has continued to deteriorate. And so this gets the station functioning, but there are more repairs and more significant repairs going to be needed down the line. So, but we have got this station working and being able to service what we needed it for, and then also for, obviously, when it goes back online for just the apartment complex. And as Tammy said, we thought maybe because it was part of the other needed for the other project, but since pump station 8 wasn't listed in the work plan for that, we weren't able to roll this cost into a change order for that.
Is the Band-Aid situation going to last long enough that we can get this situated before it fails again?
We used Band-Aid brand.
Excellent. Fabric style?
Fabric style.
Extra adhesive?
Yeah. We've got it for a while, so.
Good
And
deal.
we're monitoring it very closely.
So you don't see any other, you guys have been in there looking at it, you've had to make some repairs, you don't see any, oh man, that's not gonna make it.
Well, like I said, there's gonna be a larger repair project coming down the line sooner than later.
Right, I'm just asking if there's anything, so if the repair project is scheduled for 18 months from now, and the situation that
Will-
pump station in, will it last
Yes.
until then, or are we looking
Yes,
for?
it should last up to 12 months or so with tender loving care.
Like, so you're gonna be out there changing the Band-Aid daily?
F&V operations will be out there changing
I
the
would move-
tourniquet.
There you go. I would move to approve the Pump Station 8 pipe repair pay request to RCL Construction in the amount of $19,018 to be paid from Fund 590-000-801.000.
Support Sutton.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer and support by Mr. Sutton to approve that pay request for Pump Station 8 pipe repair. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Ms. Richards.
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the Oscoda Sabo Senior Center lease renewal. Tammy?
All right. Your packet contains a lease renewal for the Oscoda Asable Senior Center, which expires on September 30th, 2022. This lease will provide for an additional 20 years and has been reviewed by the Township's attorney and Asable Township. I will add also, this was just recently given to me a couple weeks ago. Asable's attorney has reviewed it as well. And we worked through some highlighted changes. If you looked at the original lease and this lease, there's virtually no differences.
Okay.
But they would like to have this done, so it doesn't expire.
What were the differences?
There's virtually none. Like, if there were suggested, like, would you like to have the lessor pay the utilities? And it was an absolute no. We continue the way it's being, the senior center pays the utilities right now.
So basically just updated the dates and off we go.
Yes.
Are there any additional questions?
I would make a motion to approve the new lease for the Oscoda Sabo Senior Center pending Tabo. Oh, no, they already reviewed, you said?
Yes.
So, as presented.
Okay,
Support Wusterbarth.
there's a motion by Mr. Sutton and support by Mr. Wusterbarth to approve the lease as presented for the Oscoda Sabo Senior Center renewal. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards.
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the Oscoda Phase 3 water main pay request number 1.
Your packet contains the first pay request in the Phase 3 water main project in the amount of $298,980, leaving a total of $1,348,921 on this project. I would ask that the board consider approving the first pay request from Caterman Trucking, Inc. in the amount of $298,980 to be paid from the C2R2 funds after reimbursement is requested and deposited into the township's account.
Does anybody have any questions on this? No? All right,
Make a motion to approve the Oscoda Phase 3 water main pay request number 1 from Cotterman Trucking in the amount of $298,980 to be paid from the C2R2 funds after reimbursement is requested and deposited.
is there support?
Support Sutton.
There's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton to approve Oscoda Phase 3 water main pay request 1. Roll call.
Mr. Wusterbarth,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes, Mr. Spencer,
Yes.
Ms. Richards.
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the Oscoda Phase 5 water main pay request number 1.
All right, your packet contains the first pay request in the Phase 5 water main project in the amount of $163,042.20, leaving a total of $1,794,312.50 remaining on this project. I would ask that the board consider approving the first pay request from Elmer's Crane and Dozer in the amount of $163,042.20 to be paid from the C2R2 funds after reimbursement is requested and deposited into the township's account.
Okay, any questions on this one?
I would make a motion to approve the first pay request from Elmer's Crane and Dozer in the amount of $163,042.20 to be paid from the C2R2 funds after reimbursement is requested and deposited into the township's account.
All right, support?
Who was that support by?
Is there support?
Oh, I'll
Sorry.
support Spencer. I just heard you say support.
Yeah, I guess I didn't word it correctly. There's a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Mr. Spencer to approve pay request number 1 from the Oscoda Phase 5 Water Main Project. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the assessing contract proposal. Tammy?
All right, your packet contains a proposal for assessing services from Berg Assessing and Consulting, Inc. for your review and possible approval. Mr. Berg proposes a yearly contract with an annual service fee of $144,752.40 to be paid in monthly installments of $12,062.70. Our current assessor and the township's attorney have reviewed this proposal. As this is the only proposal we have received back for assessing services, I would ask that the Township Board approve the proposal from Berg Assessing and Consulting.
Okay.
I've heard that this proposal includes a higher price for Oscoda than other townships. Is that true?
After speaking with, just so happens to be the supervisor of Plainfield Township, no. We are not, there is no difference in his $40 a parcel, correct?
Not true then.
I thought that was you, Fred, but then I'm like, I don't know if it is. Yeah. Hi. Sorry.
And I would more than happily, I did ask him if he could attend this meeting tonight. He was not able to, so if you would rather that we take it back to the next meeting, and I can have him present, that would be great too.
I have a couple questions, but if you can answer them, that's fine,
Try.
otherwise. Okay.
I sat through, it was the attorney, myself, Nancy, and Mr. Berg, so I can try my best to
Right,
answer.
and I apologize, I was by myself today when water bills were due, so I didn't even get a chance to look this over till tonight. On page 2 of 8 of the contract, in the second paragraph, it talks about the municipality will provide the company with a copy of the 1997 tax roll or assume the cost of providing the 1997 tax roll. I guess what's the relevance of that tax roll?
We never discussed that, honestly. Nancy never even brought it up. Yes, please.
You'll have to
Can
stand
you
up.
come to the,
Sorry,
Can you
Fred,
wanna come and
to the
sit?
podium? Just so then, yeah,
or next to Tammy?
or next to Tammy,
You could come
whichever
sit
way's
next to
easier.
me, Fred.
Just need you on a
You can come
microphone.
I've never had needed a microphone.
Yeah, well,
So we're asking that question.
it's just for the
People at
live
home.
feed, yeah.
Is that better?
Microphones to
Yep.
pick it up.
All right. Oh, where am I at? Okay. Yeah, the reason he's looking for that is because when he gets ready to do splits and combines, everything that they've got to have has to go back to who owned the property and who had ownership as of 1997, when the Land Division Act went into play. When the Land Division Act took effect in January 1st, I think it was in 1997, that's what they gauge. You've got to show ownership of property from then on to be able to do a land division and make sure that there's been enough splits, that there hasn't been exceeding the land division requirements.
Okay,
So right now, the reason I know this is because he didn't ask for that from us, and it's causing some issues. We've got some splits that have been taking up to 6 months because they're trying to go back and find out who owned it back in 1997, and the landowners don't have that. So they're trying to get it from the Register of Deeds, and the Register of Deeds, as you know, are cut back in staff and personnel, and so it's like, so that's, if he gets that list, then that question will be answered for any land divisions that come before.
okay. Thank you. My second question, and I probably should know this answer, but again, didn't have time to look it up. How does this, the monthly fee that they're charging, how does this compare to the current what we were paying currently?
So we pay Nancy right now $180,000 a year for her services. His are, yes, $144,000 a year, but with including the re-inspections and some of his other fees in here, which Nancy normally rolls into that 180, we will probably end up paying him probably $12,000 more.
Okay.
It's just a guess, but depending on the 10 to 20% that we require, that he inspects every year.
Gotcha. And then he's not, I mean, Nancy's that dollar amount that she pays, she then paid the help in her office as well.
Yes.
correct?
Right,
Yes. This proposal does not include staffing the office with a person.
No, this is for his
For his
staff, which I
services,
believe
okay.
is like 11 people,
All right.
so.
Okay. On page 3 of 8, under document delivery, it talks about in-person deliveries are not accepted unless coordinated by Berg through the municipality. Geez, oh, Pete's. So that means somebody bringing in their veterans' disability paperwork, they wouldn't be able to bring it in and drop it off at our office? It has to be emailed to him or
Yes.
mailed or something?
Yes.
Unless we come up with something to keep Helen or,
I did discuss with him that possibility of if Helen were a township employee, if he would work that into this proposal, and he said, yes, that would be a very good possibility because that would make some things easier on them on their side. But that would be something to negotiate in the contract.
okay.
Otherwise, they would have to email in. There would be no.
Just because people are used to being able to come in and speak to somebody about a lot of those issues, and since we are the largest township in the county, I think that we're going to get a lot of people not happy if they can't speak to somebody directly that has that knowledge. That's all.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Tim.
I don't know if you want, but we went through this exact same thing when we went with Berg and went away from a in-person assessor. It is a learning experience, especially for your community. There's no doubt that you get people that come in expecting, they want it, they got angry. I'm in all the time, so it's right next door to where the assessor used to be, so now they just come to my office and got angry, which was fine. But it's been over a year now, and it's settled down, and everybody seems to be on board with it. The veterans issue this year was our first full year into that. He has a form that he uses, that he actually is proactive on that. He sends out a form to all the veterans that had been on the list and tells them exactly what he needs them to send and when he needs it by. It's kind of like a checklist for him. And it went really seamless. I was surprised with it because in the past it's been, they'd come in here, they'd come in there, they'd no more get their forms in November, and they're coming in wanting to put them in. So he just said, hang on to them, you'll get a letter in the mail. And if you haven't seen anything by February 1st, contact me. But everything went out.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, I was pretty concerned about that.
Pardon?
Thank you for that. I was concerned about that one for sure.
And as far as collecting that paperwork, we have people, change of address forms are a big one. And so we collect them, the treasurer collects them at the treasurer's window, and she picks them up every week and puts them in an envelope and sends them up to.
Okay. And then the only other one I had was on page 6 of 8 about the tax bill collection process. It talks about in here the L429 calculation millage reduction fraction, and that how the clerk, the municipality's clerk would do those calculations. Well, our clerk has historically never done that because we've had Nancy. So I'm not sure how we change that process, or would we include that and hire him to do that as well as an extra fee, or?
We actually went over that because I was like, no way. Our clerk does not do that. And Nancy has agreed that if the board so chooses, she would pick up those kind of things under a side contractual basis if we needed her to.
Cool.
What's the quantity that we would expect?
Pardon me?
What's the quantity, the frequency we would expect that?
Once
Twice a year.
Okay.
Oh, it is once a year in the fall.
So with this new contract, we're not going to have, that office space will be emptied? Is that?
Yes, technically.
Well, but then I don't
Unless-
understand the point about Helen. So we were just saying that Helen was a possible keep.
I was just going to say, unless, and Helen has been on vacation, so my next plan was to speak with Helen and then see what her thoughts were, what she wanted to do, and possibly introduce it to the board as a full-time float position where she could actually help the treasurer's office when they needed the tax envelopes, or if they had somebody call in sick, where Jamie's stuck there by herself, and help with elections.
Answer phones?
Well, I thought she could be the zero on the call list, you know, press 0 for the receptionist. And she is the first face people see when they walk in Township Hall. So, and they naturally, even now, go straight to the assessing window. So it was a thought to keep her, and I had spoken with Mr. Berg, and he was very interested in the possibility of her remaining in somewhat of a description clerk area.
Well, good, because this board has discussed that specifically with regard to Helen in the past. We've discussed this leading up to this point in time. And so I just want to make sure that we had covered, you know, our responsibility with Helen. She's done a great job. I wouldn't want to see her kicked out of the nest. And so if you don't mind me asking, what is Mr. Berg, what is it exactly he's amenable to? Is it just the sort of a portion sharing with her, or what is it that he's actually signing up for?
A portion sharing.
I got it, all right. And what does he anticipate that portion to be? Did he mention?
He did not.
Okay.
I had suggested to him that she could do address changes, the PREs, the veterans, the little things that she could very easily provide a form for and take care of. The only other part we were concerned with was having Helen in the BSNA system on our end and them having the BSNA system on their end and not getting those two, having one doing one thing on one end and having it get confused that way.
All right, yeah, not coordinated. I get it.
See, there's a solution
We
for
had that same issue, and so what he did is he created a special database called Fred's address changes. And I have access to that, so I'll make changes in there, and then he comes in once a week and they pull him over.
That's a good idea.
So if I've got, and I only have access to certain things within the BSNA that I can make changes on. I can't change values and valuations and so on and so forth.
Sure.
It's basically just addresses and things, so.
Sure.
They can structure them that way and make it work really well. They can just give her access to exactly what they want her to be able to affect change on.
So we should probably have these answers on what we're going to do with the, with Helen?
Helen.
Helen and all the, and what, you know, the time split and all that fun stuff and the rest of those questions.
Ironed out before we actually approved it.
Yeah.
And I guess I want to say, I'm not trying to say this anything negative towards Helen whatsoever. I'm just looking at a position, not necessarily the person. So I think we need to create the position and make sure, because, I mean, Helen's not going to be there forever. It would have to be replaced by somebody else. So I feel like we need to identify what it is we want this position to do. Obviously, we want Helen to fill that position because she's been, you know, a very important part in the team at Oscoda Township for a long time. But I do think we need to look at the, you know, the function of what that office per se is going to handle. And then, you know.
I think everyone's got some input for that.
Yeah, I'm
We've been
guessing.
talking about it,
Right,
so.
okay. So would you want like I mean, do you already have like a subcommittee kind of formed in the, you know, like internally that you're
Well,
working?
it's been myself, I talked to Jamie about it, and Josh. Josh has been wanting someone, you know, for elections and things like that. And I know Jamie needs help with stuff in tax envelopes, and she normally has an assistant clerk, assistant treasurer, is that the position? What
Yeah,
it's called?
and, I mean, we could
But
utilize
part-time.
Helen and that part of the budget for that position also, too, if we wanted to combine something to use for the entire township.
So,
Right.
we've all got projects from time to time where a little help would be nice.
Right. Well, I know like a long time ago, we even discussed when the community center, closed, and that position went, was now being, Tara happens to be. But we had talked about the fact that, Old Orchard Park is not open 12 months out of the year, that maybe some of the months she could even come into Township Hall to, flow, kind of a thing, so, but that never really happened. But this might be a good opportunity for, if Helen's willing to do it, but then again, set it up for moving forward in the future, because it won't always be Helen in
Right.
perpetuity, so, yeah.
So Tammy, we could approve this contract tonight for Mr. Berg, and then would we need to amend this actual contract to do the finalizations for Helen, I shouldn't say Helen, or for the position that we were talking about?
I would think that we could discuss this with Mr. Berg and bring it back
That's
at the
where I was
next
headed with
meeting
it.
with
I like
that
that.
included.
I think we have
Okay.
a couple holes, and Tammy, I know you've done a lot of work on this, and it's taken us a long time to get even here. But I think what we should do is send you our questions this week, and then you can get them in front of Mr. Berg, and we can discuss this and possibly that floating position in administration at the next meeting. And personally, when we're signing getting into a contract of this size, I'd kind of like to have the person here, so we can talk to him directly and maybe ask Nancy to be here as well. She's just done a fabulous job for us for many, many years, so I'd like to
most
see if we can get them
definitely.
both here.
Right. I mean, do we think we'd be able to pull that all together with availability for the next meeting then, which would be October 10th?
Yep, I can meet with Jamie and Josh if that's okay with everybody, and we can pull together a position with everyone's listed demands that they would like from Helen, and
You might take a look at the policy as well, because the policy on how we do things now with Nancy in office and the policy on how we're going to do things in the future with someone out of the office may change.
How we do
I
it.
would think, yeah, I mean, the flow of how these things happen, where things are being sent, the back-end documentation should probably be updated to reflect those things, so that everybody's on the same page on what position we're creating, what the position's going to be doing, and the policies that handle how the information's going to flow to the new assessor's office.
okay.
Yeah, I can see the glare, I'm sorry.
You want that by the next 2 weeks?
It's just
Good
thorough.
luck.
Yeah, wow.
It's just thorough, that's all.
I mean, she is she handled things internally.
Right.
Because she was a contracted employee.
Right, and she was
So,
able to
yeah,
just make those
right.
decisions on the fly, whereas if we've got a contracted position here that's not in the township hall, these things are gonna change on
Yeah.
how they're handled. And I think that some of those things that we gave her the latitude to just make a decision on, maybe we have to say, this is what we want you to do in this specific instance. And most of it's just gonna be, this is just how it's gonna flow from now on.
Okay. Great. So would somebody like to make a motion to?
Sure. I make a motion that we postpone the assessor contract proposal, and I ask the board to provide any comments as to the contract, as to the floating possible position in the future, any cost share of that discussion by Thursday, 9/29 to Ms. Klein, so she has plenty of time to gather them and talk to Mr. Berg, and then also that we ask that Mr. Berg and Nancy be present at the meeting that this is going to be presented to us for approval.
Sure. Support by Cummings.
Great. Motion by Mr. Westerbarth and support by Mr. Cummings. Postpone to the next meeting. And again, everybody get their comments to Tammy by Thursday, which is in a couple days from now, the 29th. Okay? Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Westerbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes. Motion carried. Sorry. Thanks for
Yes.
coming up,
thank
Fred.
you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Moving on then to the resolution section. We have quite a few that looks like Nicole has moved over into her seat for. So the first one is new section 6.36 ADU ordinance. sounds like something's going to blow up, but I'm thinking that that's not the case.
No, that's not the case. It's okay.
All right, sounds good.
Was that your only question?
Yeah. Yep. That's it, that's all I got. Do you have any questions? Are you doing a little presentation? What's the?
So I was here probably three meetings ago to talk on all of these. You guys didn't have too many questions then, so I just figured I'd have you ask any questions, and it's the same as the last meeting.
Okay. So we're just asking any questions, comments? All right. Anybody got any questions for new section 6.36 ADU ordinance? Besides if it's going to blow up?
Is this the tiny house?
This is accessory dwelling unit.
Oh, yes. Excel. Cool.
Nicole, would you just, for the audience at home, and maybe there's new people watching, explain why that you had to bring these back? Just a short overview?
Sure. This is the final read. The attorney's recommendation was to have the township board do 2 reads on them. As our previous attorney just had us do 1 read. So they are not to be adopted in the same meeting that they were introduced in, which was the first time I brought them. And so that's why this, what's that?
What date was that, please?
August 8th, I believe, off the top of my head, it's, yeah. Yep, that's 2 or 3 meetings ago.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
Yep, and I just had to notice them to the newspaper. We were gonna do it as a public hearing, and she said, no, you don't need to do a public hearing. That is up to you if you want to do one, but it is not required, just a final read.
Okay. All right, so no comments on that? All right, then the next one is the new micro-housing ordinance. Any questions or comments on that one?
Why do you think this is going to blow up? You
making
said
a
that, and
joke.
I'm like,
It's
I
an
thought you meant like
ordinance.
blow up.
ADU, blow up, like ADU, like.
So
I
not
was
like
thinking
the
a bomb, no.
community's not going to be
No.
upset about this.
I'm making a joke, sorry.
No, I just wanted to, because I'm thinking about it, I'm like, man,
not that
could
deep,
somebody be
Jeremy.
upset that the neighbor's building a tiny house in their
I'm
backyard?
sure somebody would be, but yeah.
Okay.
But no, that's not.
All right,
I
I
was
was-
making a joke, sorry.
My bad.
Yeah.
My only comment is the 2 sample pictures here are much more appealing than container housing like we've seen in recent meetings.
Okay, all right, then we have number 3, Article 5, Plan Unit Development Ordinance Amendment. Okay. Chapter 20, Parks and Recreation Code of Ordinances Amendment. In there. Section 4.2, Forestry District revisions. Number 6 is section 6.2.6, accessory structures on vacant lots revisions. And number 7 is.
That's not me.
Yeah,
That's
that's not there.
separate.
But I do
Yep.
need a motion, please, for all of these.
I'd just like to add, I'd like to thank the planning commission, because I know there's a lot of work and a lot of hours, personal time, getting all this done. So Nicole and to the entire planning commission, thank you, because our ordinance needs some cleanup. There's some conflicting things, and I think, especially in forestry and accessory structures, I think it's addressing some of those conflicts.
It is, and I would like to mention that all of these revisions, they started at least back in March or April of this year, so they've gone through all of the meetings. There have been several planning commission meetings, and any public hearing we have on these, which anytime there's an ordinance revision, we have at least 1 public hearing, and that does get noticed to the newspaper 15 days before the meeting. So they've been through all of those reads, the attorney, the subcommittee, the professional planner, planning commission, and now onto the board. It has been a long process.
Right.
Wow, thank you.
So you need a motion then to approve individually or all together?
Say
I
individually.
was thinking individually, but she
Well,
just
maybe I should
went
have
on
been
a
given
roll.
this direction before we started.
Well, I'll
Okay.
start off. I'll make a motion that we adopt Section 6.36 ADU ordinance into our code.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Westerbarth, support by Ms. McGuire for new Section 6.36 ADU ordinance. Roll call.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Next is I'll make a motion that we approve new micro-housing ordinance.
Support Spencer?
Okay, there's a motion by Richards, support by Spencer for the new micro-housing ordinance. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Do you want to take Article 5?
I'll make a motion that we adopt Article 5 Planned Unit Development Ordinance Amendment into our code.
I'll support that. There's a motion by Mr. Westerbar, support by Ms. Richards for Article 5 Plan Unit Development Ordinance Amendment. Roll call.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Carrying on, anybody have Chapter 20? I'll make a motion that we approve Chapter 20 Parks and Recreation Code of Ordinances Amendment.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Ms. Richards, support by Mr. Sutton for Chapter 20 Parks and Recreation Code of Ordinance Amendment. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried.
I'll make a motion that we approve Section 4.20 Forestry District revisions.
Support.
You did.
Okay, there's a motion by Ms. McGuire, support by, Mr. Sutton, to approve Section 4.20 Forestry District revisions. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. All right, last one. I make a motion, we approve Section 6.2.6 Accessory Structures on Vacant Lots revisions.
Support.
Motion by Richards, support by Sutton for Section 6.2.6. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
and I knew that the resolution wasn't included in that, but I was on a roll earlier. Okay, moving on, we have Resolution 2022-26, which is a resolution to amend the budget.
Okay, so I believe it was an August meeting, the board approved the purchase of the meter pits for the upcoming current, well, as then upcoming, now current water main phases. And since those weren't appropriated for in the 2022 budget, I need to ask the board permission to amend the budget and appropriate for the, I believe it's 300, hold on one second.
45,000,
Yes,
891.37.
yes. Therefore, the resolution.
Where's that amount at?
It's on page 193. Under what's called column 22
Oh,
activity.
up, okay. Sorry, I was looking way down at the bottom. I'm like, I didn't see that amount. Okay, all right. 345, 891.37?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Any questions on that? All right.
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2022-26.
Support by Cummings.
All right, there's a motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Cummings to approve Resolution 2022-26. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. All right, moving on to, under other, superintendent, annual salary increase. This is a memo from Josh, so I'm assuming you will be discussing it. And before you start, I guess I need to email out the evaluation process, so I will get on that. Tammy gave me the heads up on that a couple weeks ago, and I have not sent that out, so we'll do that tomorrow.
But we talked about that earlier this summer. We're supposed to have this 2 months before this contract is due.
I think that we talked
You-
about it
it was
earlier this summer. It was a
mentioned in
couple
your-
weeks ago that she emailed it to me, but
I emailed
regardless, I'll get it
July.
out tomorrow. Can't go backwards.
When is the anniversary date?
September 16th.
September
we passed it.
16th.
Yeah, if you want, it has come to my attention that Ms. Klein is due for her annual increase in pay per her contract September 16, 2022. Section 3, salaries and benefits. Superintendent shall be paid an annual salary of $85,100 along with annual increases of 4% effective the anniversary dates of this agreement, subject to performance evaluations and a majority of the board members voting to authorize pursuant thereto. When you get to section 9, performance evaluation, it says commencing with the first anniversary of this agreement, the Township Board of Charter Township of Oscoda shall review and evaluate performance of the superintendent on an annual basis and prior to the anniversary date of this agreement to the extent practicable under normal circumstances. This evaluation shall take place within 2 months, either before or after the corresponding anniversary date, and the evaluation shall involve all 7 members of the Board of Trustees. I am asking that the board approve the annual increase of 4% effective September 16, 2022, the anniversary date of this agreement, and that an additional year be added to the contract to ensure that the next elected board has at least 1 year to work with the superintendent before the contract is up for a vote. Also, in adding the additional year to the contract, I would like to have our current attorney review the contract for any legal deficiencies.
Okay? Because obviously it was drafted by our former attorney.
Yes. In that section on the evaluation says you must do it before or after. And just that alone, you go through it a little more, you can see we need to have it reviewed because there's some issues in there.
So
So we
when
do
was the
have up to 2
contract
months
executed?
after.
I'm sorry.
Currently, yes.
Okay.
It doesn't
When was it-
change that she's due an increase on September 16th, 1 year.
Correct.
Well, that's true.
Regardless on if you have an evaluation or not.
Actually, in that first paragraph, that's not what it says.
She is not at
It
fault
says,
here.
well, I'm not, definitely not saying she's not at fault here.
Well, the contract
It's
doesn't.
just saying, subject to performance evaluations, she's due the increase, unless I'm not reading that correctly.
So when was the contract executed? What was the date again?
September 16th.
It was 16th. Okay, got it.
But the current contract gives you the 2 months before or 2 months after to evaluate. That's why I said it's very,
Right,
that's why I made sure I included that so you guys saw the verbiage
yep.
of what we were having some issues with. And then the adding of the additional year was so we didn't start like we did with the
Yep.
new superintendent or having to make a decision on that superintendent without knowing who that superintendent is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have we already talked to the attorney about this? Do we know?
I did ask her, because I read her, when Josh gave this to me, I read her the first sentence in my contract regarding performance evaluation, and honestly, she laughed because it contradicts itself, because at one point it says, in the first sentence, it says that the board shall review and evaluate the performance and prior to the anniversary date of this agreement. So that sentence, first of all, says it needs to be done before the anniversary date, and the second sentence right after that says it can be done 2 months before or 2 months after. So she said, yeah, that definitely should be
Right.
reviewed, just for the legal standpoint.
Yeah.
And then that also for the salary and benefits, it lists all the way up to that comma, like along with annual increases on the anniversary date. So it's basically stating that we should be giving you that increase on your anniversary date, but then the comma's in there subject to the evaluations and majority of the board members vote, which then the evaluations don't have to be done before that date. So
Right.
that's literally in reviewing that for the payroll issue, why I want to have that reviewed by our new attorney, because as you read through it, most of the contract is do it this way, but do it this way. Do it this way, but, and it doesn't put anything in there. And I didn't want, Ms. Klein to not get that raise on her anniversary date after all the work she's put in.
Yep.
And basically pulling us out of a big hole after the last superintendent, and then two, just to get this clarified and address those other issues kind of all in one when we have it reviewed.
Okay, yeah,
I appreciate that.
not disagreeing, for sure.
So basically, we're going to get the review forms, we're going to fill it out, we're going to do the review, and then if, provided the board approves the raise, then we're going to backdate it to the 16th.
No.
No.
No, we would approve the raise on the anniversary date and the evaluations.
We owe her.
Right, that's backdating it to the
anniversary.
16th. If we approve it, if we approve it
If
2
you approve
weeks
it
from now-
tonight, it goes into her payroll on this anniversary date. That's what I'm looking for. So we don't have a back pay on payroll. Not my favorite thing to have. I don't like owing people money for work, so. And we've had issues just in getting, when we were getting Ms. Klein into the position, we were having issues with those pay, and I just, at this point, I feel it would be unfair to not give her the raise she has earned because we don't have those evaluations done 2 months before or 2 months after the anniversary date. That's why I said, when you read it, until you get to that comma, it says you should give that raise, but then subject the evaluations that don't necessarily have to be done per the date that you want me to put the money in for the raise.
So maybe, should we just table this till the next meeting and have the attorney review the whole thing for us? I mean, it sounds like it's really messed up.
Well, right now, we have an employment contract that both parties have signed, so to change that employment contract is going to take agreement from Ms. Klein in any change. So the contract today is we owe her an increase that was due on September 16th. Regardless, as a board, if we've met our criteria, which we have not as a board to her.
But that's not true, because it says it's subject to performance evaluations and a majority of the board members voting to
Which
authorize.
should have been before her contract is up. I don't care what it says in there, it's before. You usually have a performance review before the anniversary date.
Yep.
That's on us.
It still says that in the contract that they signed, though.
Well, Jamie, how would you feel if you had a performance review that was due and it didn't happen and you didn't get your
I
potential
think that
raise?
if you look back in history of a lot of the superintendents, it didn't happen right away when it was
Well,
supposed to.
I believe in contracts. We wrote this contract
And it's a crappy one by the looks of it, so I think that the
I
attorney should
wasn't
review
involved
it.
in, I'm just saying.
Well, we approved
agreed-
it.
We approved it.
That's right.
We owe her a performance merit raise, and we can discuss what that is. We can discuss if we want to keep with what's in the contract, but we owe her as of September 16th.
I know that we discussed the evaluation, I believe, at the special meeting that we had, Tammy, on, I think that's when you said, which I'll take ownership. I should have remembered the evaluation process earlier, but I believe it was in August when we talked about chain of command and so
July.
on, and that's when, what day was that?
July.
Was that July? Mm-hmm. Wow, how time flies. Okay, all right, well, I'll take responsibility for not doing it when I should have emailed it out. I don't think it actually says about stepped, it says a 4% cut and dry. I mean, I'm comfortable with doing that now.
Yeah, I'm-
As of, and going back to September, without the performance, the actual forms, because I think you have done a great job. So I'm comfortable in making that motion. I will get the emails out to the board tomorrow to do the official process. But I would say we go retro back to the, I'm sorry, whatever the date was, September 16th.
Support Spencer.
Okay. All right, so there's a motion by Richards and support by Mr. Spencer to approve the increase of 4% back to the September 16th date and make that retro, and then I will get the evaluation out tomorrow in the mail for
Can
everybody.
we also add in to have the attorney review
Oh, I'm
that?
sorry, and I will add in that our current attorney review the contract. I believe we had a subcommittee, the hiring committee, but I don't know if just the subcommittee reviewed the contract or not. Do you remember that? It was myself, Mr. Cummings, and Mr. Palmer, I think.
Yeah, it was actually just the attorney. We didn't get into the.
the
We
nitty-gritty
didn't
on
try to
the-
be attorneys on it.
Yeah.
We were just
So I
trying to
guess
give
my
the
thought would
terms.
be is the attorney, our
Yeah.
attorney review that, and then maybe make a letter to us in
Yeah.
regard to her suggested changes moving forward, and seeing if you're comfortable with that.
Sounds good.
Okay?
So just to be clear, I think Tammy has done an amazing job too for everything that she's had to deal with. My concern has definitely nothing to do with her performance. I just am scared with approving something and the way this is written and how that's going to look legally down the road to anybody else out there in Oscoda that's looking, or I don't want to create a precedence or something that any other contract that we're dealing with, something's going to get blown out of proportion. So just wanted to make sure that that was good. She totally deserves this.
Okay. So to clarify again, I made the motion, Richards, and support by Mr. Spencer.
Still support, still Spencer.
Okay, all right. Any further discussion?
Well, I guess Josh had in his letter, he'd like to extend Ms. Klein's
yes.
contract an additional year. If we're having the attorney at that, I would like to have that considered.
Okay. I would amend my motion to include that.
Still
Thank you.
support, still Spencer.
Okay. All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Wishbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes,
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. And again,
Tammy, thank you for everything that you do.
yeah, and I do apologize.
Thank you.
And we'll get that out tomorrow. Thank you. Okay. All right, moving on to the Northern Assessing 2022 contract extension.
All right, so I went back to the well with Nancy.
Yeah,
I love her.
Didn't we talk about this last time? I said, let's just give it another month, and everybody shot me down, and here we are.
how time flies. I'll say it again.
So with this part of her contract, so she would like to help welcome in someone else, and she has some projects that she would like completed before she leaves. I believe this is her very last extension.
So we better wrap
I won't
this up.
swear to it, but, and that also, just so everyone knows, keeps Helen working an extra month also for Nancy.
Repeat that again?
Keeps Helen working an extra
Oh,
month
yes.
for Nancy as well.
Sure.
So,
And Tammy, I'll just add, I was in the township last Friday, and I had probably a half an hour discussion with Nancy. So she told me the last thing she's finishing up is kind of reassessing all the industrial areas, which she must have had folders this tall on her desk. And she wanted to make sure that was clean and everybody knew where the files were before she left. But she does want to really help the next person coming in.
she has been very helpful
She's
in
been
the
extremely
contract
helpful.
process.
Right.
This
Well, and
proposal.
Yeah, I know Jessica, the assessor in Oscoda Township, completely raves about Nancy's work, and that it would be, she wished that she could take our community on, but it's just too much on her plate right now. But of any community, Nancy's got her Ts crossed and Is dotted, and it's, something to,
Definitely.
yeah. So I guess with that, I make a motion that we approve extending and thanking her for extending another month.
Support by Cummings.
Okay, there's a motion by Richards, support by Mr. Cummings to extend the Northern Assessing 2022 contract for another month. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
yes,
Mr. Wishbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
One more time.
Mr. Cummings?
I think you need to say yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. All right, moving on to the treasurer request open C2R2 construction checking account.
just a couple housekeeping items on the end of the agenda here. Well, not quite the end, because Josh added something. But we are required to get board approval to open any of the checking accounts. So I have 3 requests, obviously, for the C2R2 construction. We have started with our debt retirement for the DWRF and also for the CWSRF. So I need to create checking accounts for both of those, for all 3 of those things. And I would probably need them individually, please.
Okay, before we act, because they're all going to be like the same, does anybody have any questions as to why we're doing this? Everybody all right? Okay, then we'll just take them one at a time. The first one is the request to open the C2R2 construction checking account.
I would make a motion to approve the request to open the C2R2 construction checking account as presented.
Support, Spencer.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Mr. Spencer, to approve the C2R2 construction checking account being opened. Roll call, please.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurschbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on then to the DWRF debt retirement checking account. I make a motion to open that account.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Richards, support by Mr. Sutton, to open the DWRF debt retirement checking account. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurschbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. And last is the CWSRF debt retirement checking account. I'll make a motion to open that as well.
Support.
There's a motion by Richards, support by Mr. Sutton, to open the CWSRF debt retirement checking account. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wurschbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. All right, moving on, we had the agenda addition by Josh, the RAB and chain of command.
Pardon me. Pass those down. All right, and I just brought this up, we had brought it up before, so I'll just read off kind of what I'm looking at here. At the Restoration Advisory Board, I have been attending the Restoration Advisory Board meetings and have a concern as to all the now members that are on the board. I feel the board needs to make a recommendation to the Restoration Advisory Board to ensure that each group is equally represented by one chosen representative. Specifically, raise my concerns as to Mr. Palmer being our alternate to Mr. Cummings, as he is a now member. I feel Mr. Palmer needs to be removed immediately from the alternate position and another board member appointed who is not a now member, to ensure that the township representative is representing only the township board and no other entity. Per Ms. Wurschbarth's comments at the August 8th board meeting, suggesting that all communications for remediation should come through our RAB chair, Mr. Cummings, until using the established chain of command that this board just reviewed and was tasked to follow. Per the attached email, March 21st, 2022, Mr. Wurschbarth, Mr. Wurschbarth's husband, stated, "I agree 100%. This needs to go to the superintendent and be managed from there. Ms. Klein is our daily representative, and she can engage the board when needed." I'm a little confused as to how the chain of command that we approved and tasked ourselves to follow has now somehow been changed to give the command to a trustee that we all agreed would reside with Ms. Klein. So for clarification, I am attaching all emails regarding this from our March through August, as well as Charter Township of Oscoda organizational chart. All communications are to go through the superintendent to be passed on to the board as needed. The superintendent runs the day-to-day operations of the township and ensures all information is distributed to the entire board at the same time. Information from subcommittees, boards, and other government agencies are to go through the superintendent with action items being presented to the board when needed for approval. In short, the superintendent works with Eagle, DOD, Air Force, and F&V to ensure remediation projects are being completed. Ms. Klein has been working on this diligently since taking the position. To date, Ms. Klein has overseen over $300 million in remediation efforts on the former airbase. I find this impressive as she accomplished all this while board members were or are actively working to sabotage the good relationship we have now with the DOD and Air Force. Furthermore, if you are not appointed to be a representative for a specific board or issue, then you must go to the superintendent to gain approval to work on these issues separate of the established groups. Currently, with one admitted now member, being Mr. Palmer, reaching out to Eagle DOD, regional politicians, and our contractor F&V without authority or permission has caused several issues as he lacks all the necessary information to be involved. We also have Mr. Wishbarth, who is married to Ms. Wishbarth, the leader of the No Group, who is showing up at Senate hearings and other meetings in relation to our remediation efforts without authority or approval, and fails to see the direct conflict of being involved in now business as a township official. I am recommending the immediate removal of Mr. Palmer from the appointed RAB alternate position, and that Mr. Palmer and Ms. Wishbarth recuse from voting or participating in remediation discussions and meetings. This is to avoid being removed from the RAB due to inability to work with the DOD and Air Force without prejudice. And I do have the attached emails from Mr. Wishbarth and Mr. Palmer.
Well, Josh, that's one hell of an ambush. I'm going to be perfectly honest.
This isn't an ambush. I brought this up before.
Oh, yeah,
You
we
guys
talked
did not
about,
wanna talk about
chain
it.
of command, but now you've implicated me. Mr. Palmer is not here to represent him, but you added this to the agenda and he's not here. So I have a concern with that, and I have a concern with the ambush, as we talked about this before. I've gotten accused of that before. And I'm married to Kathy Wishbarth, that's true. I am not a legal member or voting member or even a member of NOW. And yes, I did attend a Senate meeting as a citizen. I was not asked to do anything. I was in the audience to listen to see what was going on. So you're telling me I can't even do that? There was no township business discussed. I went on my own. Wasn't a part of the agenda. I went to sit and listen to the hearing in person.
Yeah.
So,
If you're
Yeah.
going to do those things, I would just recommend you reach out to the
Mr.
superintendent.
Sutton, I will tell you this. I guess I'd have the attorney here because I will not be recusing myself for what you're asking for. And I will not be supporting to remove Mr. Palmer as he was installed as the alternate on that board. So that's my comments. Have the attorney come.
I think everybody knows how I feel about agenda additions. I'm not really fond of them. Didn't know this was coming. Haven't had the chance to read it. You just read it to me. So I don't really have any comment per se right now. I'm not ready to act on anything.
That was just to bring the discussion to a forefront, because I had brought it up before, and we had that information as well as opinions from the attorney, but we did not get any resolve with that. So I apologize if you feel that this is an ambush. It was just simply something that has continued to go on from March until now that is affecting the community in a negative way, and I feel provides
don't
those
believe-
conflicts, and it is.
I don't believe
Your
that.
right as the
Josh, I
elected
would say
official.
get your head out of the sand and be a part of the solution.
Steve, I would appreciate
Okay,
it if you
all
would
right, all
let
right.
people finish
Please,
speaking.
come on, all right. I will say that I just lost my train of thought there. I did have concerns in regard to the RAB and how information is brought to the township. I believe that the Restoration Advisory Board is a community board where there's discussion. I don't think that that stops or should stop the direct communication from coming in to the superintendent to then go from there. So I guess I hear that point. In regard to the rest of this, I really don't have comment right now. But I think that we need to figure that component out, because whether or not that follows our chain of command, I guess. I feel like they're two separate animals. I feel that chain of command is how we operate, and that's how we need to stick to. And the Restoration Advisory Board is a subcommittee that, again, you sit on, but that does not mean that the communication from the Air Force should all go through the Restoration Advisory Board, then back to the township. I do think that the direct communication needs to come to our superintendent. So I think we need clarification on that, because that was discussed or thrown out there that that's how it should happen. And I guess I don't think that that is how it should happen.
Now, what was
we need to-
discussed in that meeting, in that work session in chain of command, that Tim Cummings is our representative, and the information should flow from Tim to the board. That's what was discussed
At which meeting?
from the RAB.
the chain of command meeting. That was when it was discussed. And historically, we've permitted the subcommittee section of the agenda to include RAB updates and things of that nature in the past, as we would at the community center or any other subcommittee that we
Right.
had at the time.
Right, right. I'm still kind of, you're saying a chain of command meeting, the only chain of command meeting that I'm aware of we had was in the library where we talked about the
That
chain
was
of,
the work session.
right, at a work session.
Yep.
But we didn't talk about subcommittees only having the dialogue with the Air Force at that time.
Yeah, I mean, when we think of chain of command, I think in terms of what we're asking. If I have an ask, and I know that it needs to coordinate with the board or with other people in the township, like, let's say, department heads, that would be Tammy. That's the chain of command. But flow of communication, which is not chain of command, would be where I would come to this board and I would have either an agenda item added for, like, let's say, the RAB under the subcommittee, and I would present some information. Like, that's flow of communication. That's me as the chairman, as the appointed representative for this board going to the RAB, bringing information back, sharing, asking for, a presentation, that type of thing. Making sure that people know when the RAB meetings are, et cetera. That's flow of communication, not chain of command. So I just feel that there's two different things, and I don't think that they should be confused. That was all I was just clarifying, those 2 points.
Right. But that's where I'm still saying that I understand that you are the RAB representative and you're bringing that back.
Yeah.
I think the comments that Josh is addressing is when Mrs. Westerbar, sorry, Kathy stood at the podium and said,
Yeah.
all communication with the Air Force should go to you as the RAB and then to us.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And that's where I'm saying that that is not a correct statement, in my opinion.
Right.
That needs to all be funneled with the Air Force and that to the superintendent and then go down there. RAB is RAB.
Right.
Direct communication is something else. So I think
I
that's
see
where
what
the
you're saying.
breakdown is.
I see what you're saying.
So,
Yeah, I don't
Right,
expect to be
or
driving
reaching
those
out or reaching out to the Air Force
or
either.
reaching out to,
That would be Tammy's
yes.
job.
I don't
Exactly.
expect to be driving communications or negotiations or
Right,
something. It's
and-
not my position.
Correct.
I'm not empowered for that purpose.
Correct.
As a RAB representative. But if there were communications going on with the Air Force, I think I would need to be involved with them, so I understand how to represent us when I'm at a RAB meeting. And that hasn't always occurred in the past.
Okay.
So,
Point noted.
yeah.
Right. I'm just saying that the superintendent, who's actually the person that's handling the
Right.
FMV contract, everything else,
absolutely.
needs to be the point of contact in regard to if the Air Force is reaching out,
Yep.
DOD is reaching out,
Right.
and want to discuss something on a big picture, it comes to us first before it's going to the Restoration Advisory Board to maybe be discussed in the community setting. It
Yeah,
doesn't always happen
It's
that
a
way.
specific situation,
Right.
yeah, those don't come up that often, but fair enough, yeah. I mean, I've actually reached out to Tammy to get a meeting with her to discuss something about the Air Force. So, I mean, it's a perfect example of where I went to her, emailed her, waiting for a reply and hoping to get a meeting set up with her and myself and somebody at the Air Force, so.
Yeah, this is just more to basically keep everything open and make sure we're not doing anything wrong and to avoid, we had a situation where Senator Peters called in. As a board member had contacted him and had told the Air Force, or said that the Air Force was doing nothing. That call immediately went from his office to the contractors working on it, who then called Ms. Klein. So again, when that stuff comes up and you've got a senator on the phone yelling at you, and then you've also got the DOD yelling at you, and you don't even know what happened and how you got there, and it took almost a day and a half to track that down to find out that a board member had reached out and made that complaint. And those are the careful things where if we move in one direction, I don't want to stop the progress we're making. At the end of the day, getting these water projects done and the remediation projects done for the health and safety of our community is first and foremost, and I appreciate everything now does, but we are not, I cannot stand here and argue and call out and yell at people or other entities that we work with. So we work within the candor of government-to-government relations. And that's why I said I love having the Now Group, because they are on the other side and they can go do those things as a group of people, different from how we interact with the Air Force and DOD here from the township to government level.
Okay. So there will be no action taken in regard to this memo. Okay? Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You would.
Unless you're making, unless you want to make a motion that does something.
No,
So-
I just wanted to bring that up. It's been out there, and like I said, it's something we've been working on since March, and it just continues to circle around and become a bigger issue. It unfortunately seems to be almost a weekly thing to deal with information coming from other places, so.
Okay. All right. All right, moving on then. We have our second public comment section of the agenda. Again, this is the time where you can either talk about something we talked about on the agenda or anything in general. You're limited to the same time frame, which is 4 minutes. You do need to come to the podium, state your name and where you reside. And I'm just going to start, and I usually start in a section. This is your first time here, Fred, but this is what I do. I start in a section. If you want to come up to the podium, please raise your hand. I'm starting in your section over there, Rick. Anybody there? No? Okay. I'm in the middle section. If you'd like to speak on public comment, please raise your hand, and I'm just going to kind of go there. I'm sorry, the lady behind Fred, I don't know what your name is. And again, when you come to the podium, please state your name. And do you need the address, or just where you reside?
Just where they reside.
Okay.
My name is Peggy Lewis. I'm from Hale, and I'm running for Board of Commissioner, District 3. It would be Precinct 2 in Oscoda. Thank you, Josh, for sending me the list of names that I've requested. I graduated from Hale High School. From there, we went to the Upper Peninsula, Houghton. From that, I went to New York City, where I lived for several years, and then to Columbus, Ohio. I was an executive manager for a large restaurant chain while we were there. We decided to come back home to be near family and raise our children, so we bought the Bears Den restaurant, which I owned and operated for 30 years. I've also been trained in business management, forecast management, employee relations, public dynamics, and I've worked with the public since I was 15. So it's a big thing, and it's a lot of different situations that you deal with. I decided to run and became concerned when the revenue was estimated, they were expecting the revenue to be sharply decreased. So they made some cuts, which they felt were necessary at the time to meet the budget demands. When the revenues weren't decreased, however, they didn't bring the departments back up to where they should be. And because of that, a lot of services today still are not functioning and are not efficient for the county. And that's one of the things that I plan to work very hard on, as well as the communication with the county and the different townships, the people and the businesses. And I've been out speaking with people, and I have a lot of comments and ideas to work through. So I just wanted to introduce myself.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Peggy. Still had 2 minutes left, but that's okay. All right, I'm sorry, if you could just keep, yeah. Kathy, you want to go up? Wait, just let, oh, you're
Yep, I
good?
got it
Okay.
now, yep.
Kathy Woosterbarth, 72700 Shoreview Drive. We have a lot to celebrate today. We got a grant for $9.5 million for clean water for hundreds of homes in Oscoda. I suggest that the board find a way to formally thank Sue Aller for her efforts related to this. It is an amazing thing. I do want to make a point that legislators do not act on their own without constituents, helping them or letting them know what they want. So it was the community of Oscoda that said to Sue Aller, we want that money for clean water. And that is actually the second priority of the NOW group, is extending municipal water supply to affected homes. So we have the three priorities. I'll repeat them again. The first one is to get the Venette plume addressed. The second was municipal water to the affected homes. And the third is to have a health study or blood sampling for residents in our area. So, well, that leads me to the second thing, which is the challenges that this community is going to have, or this board is going to have in the future. That news that you got last meeting about the wastewater treatment plant was very bad news. You have a challenge in front of you. And I'm bringing this image to you as a reminder of who the polluter is. Now, when you're asked how things are going in Oscoda, how is the remediation going in Oscoda, how is the Air Force doing? This board should act like our parents for a kid who has cancer. This is a tumor spreading cancer through our community. If I go to a doctor and the doctor says to my child, we got a little bit of that tumor. We're going to leave the rest. We're going to get to it when we can. Do you think that that's acceptable? Is that how you would act if you had a tumor in your child? Well, this is how I feel about my community. And this is the leaders that we should have. This should not be acceptable that there is a tumor spreading in our community. Because the Air Force has not done so much, like some of our township board members have said. I want to point out, 4 filtration systems have been completed in 10 years. We need 18. At that rate, 35 years is going to go by before we get this tumor addressed. We need to be strong with the Air Force, and it's your job to do that. The community members are not sabotaging this effort. We are assisting you. We've been at it for 5 years. We can help you with these relationships. And it does, you do have to create relationships with these senators and with these legislators so you can get the money that you need, so you can get that influence with the Department of Defense. You are not going to do that as a board all by yourself. You need this community behind you. And if you don't get together and remember who your polluter is,
Your time is up, Kathy. Thank you.
be leaders.
Thank you. Okay, yep, Clayton?
Had so many things to say, 4 minutes isn't even close. And that's another issue I'm going to take up with this board at some time in the future. I can tell you this. You should be listening to what that lady says. I see everybody listening but the one person that was unhappy with communications by members of this community. He's busy on his computer instead of paying attention to what she has to say. Shame on him. I came here probably a couple of months ago to talk about a situation that some friends who live on base housing have. They weren't given a timely warning about unpotable water. Response was pretty lukewarm. And I never did get told, nor were they told or informed, that there was a proper procedure to notify everybody that they have to boil water. And I told them how they could do. They could get in touch with that association who knows where everybody is, has their phone number, probably even has their address, and has their email, so that everybody is notified. It's a man over there who should have been probably putting that situation or plan into place and testing it to make sure it works. And I've heard nothing, they have not heard anything that they can be fairly warned. Like Kathy says, that water is our enemy. And the people that created that situation are our enemy. They swore to defend us, and meanwhile, they're poisoning us while they did that. They need to be held accountable for that.
Right.
You hear that friendly fire thing? That's basically what we have now, and we need to take them into account for that. And we need to do everything, the citizens in this community, and all of you who have been elected trustees, we are giving you our trust to do something about that. That's just one of the problems we have in this community. And it's going to be hard to get people to come in and fill these vacant buildings if they know that the water here is poisoned. Think about that. That's all I got to say tonight, but I'll be back.
Thank you, Clayton. Kelly, I think you, yep.
Hi, everyone. Kelly Brown. I live in Oscoda. Couple of things I wanted to go over. I had emailed the board back, and ironically, after Mr. Jolly spoke, this was something I wanted to bring up. Talked about the water situation when we had that boil water alert and getting a notification system. And I had included some screenshots, if you guys remember, of some different communities throughout Michigan and what they use to help get it started. And then I had sent through another request to get it put back on the agenda, and it's never come back up yet. And I think we just need to do something for the individual citizens when stuff like this comes up. We have to have something in place. I mean, there's Nixle, you guys mentioned BS&A and using that. You know, we can email out a Chamber of Commerce newsletter, but we can't somehow contact our citizens about clean water and when you need to boil water alerts. So I would like to ask if you can put it somewhere on the agenda. I don't care if it's informational, just keep it on that agenda until it's solved. Because there's no reason why we can't do this. And I even sent you guys comments of what people had indicated on Facebook, because a lot of people actually got their information on Facebook about boil the water. They didn't even know until they looked on Facebook. Which brings me to point number 2. We need a static Facebook page for our township. Everybody has it. You don't have to engage with it, but you can use it as a great communication tool. It doesn't take a lot of work. You know, you can put up new events. You got the calendar on the website. You can remind people to go to the website. Remind them, I mean, look how much more attendance we're getting. And people are getting the word out that they want to come and hear what you guys are doing for our community. Just get it done. You know, if you need help doing it, I'm sure there's members in the community. Jeremy, you are an IT wizard. I know you can help someone figure out all that good stuff with the security features. So I just think that that is a really good, you know, opportunity to show the communication and the efforts on behalf of the board to make sure the community knows what's going on, you know, so that they don't have to keep looking around. The other thing, I know you guys are getting ready to do your 2023 budgeting. You were trying to figure out a crazy schedule with all 8 of you. I wanted to make a recommendation because one of the big feedback in a lot of the surveys that were recently reviewed, and one of the constant seems to be people want the blight and the code violations to be looked at. Put into your 2023 another police officer. They're experienced, they're knowledgeable in dealing with situations that might involve maybe someone not feeling the same way that the township does about way they have to keep their property, things like that. So if you could take into consideration throwing another police officer, I think it would be really, really good taxpayer money well spent. I do want to thank Jamie. Jamie, you are always so detailed. I love, you know, page 2, line 6, all those things. Thank you for taking the time for someone like myself that wants to go through the minuscule details. It means a lot to people that want to make sure things are looking at that. Also, there was a great grant writing class that just went on over at the Alcona Community College, the Oscoda campus. I don't know if anyone else from the board or any of the subcommittees signed up for it, but I'm hoping there'll be another one before the beginning of the year. There is a ton of grants out there. I had no idea till I started signing up on all these local pages. Lastly, Galen, thank you for pulling together a fabulous Paul Bunyan Festival. It was awesome this year, and we had a great time. Thanks for your time, everyone.
Thanks,
you.
Kelly.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, anybody else in the middle section before I move on? Oh, go ahead.
Before you start the timer, I'm not sure how well this will work. I don't remember if I had these on when I spoke before.
I don't think you did, but.
Okay.
Okay, go.
Nancy Roy, Oscoda. I've got several things I want to discuss or mention tonight. Number one, on the front of your agenda, could you indicate in a corner each meeting what all those initials mean so that all of us know what you're talking about when you,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
yes.
Yep.
That would help tremendously so we know what you're talking about. Okay, what does final read mean? Should it be read to the public? I understand that you have that entire packet, but all I have is a cell phone, not a regular computer. It's hard to go through 141 pages in a packet to know what all these ordinances are, how they're changed, et cetera. And if there's supposed to be 1 or 2 readings, what does a reading mean? Should you be reading it or putting it up on the screen so that the public can see it and understand what you're voting on? All right. I'd like to make a comment. When board members get upset about feeling backstabbed, I think the constituents kind of feel that way sometimes too, because they don't know what's coming up, and then you pass an ordinance. I feel that the mini homes or the tiny homes could be an issue. Are they going to be privately owned? Are they going to be rentals? Is there a limit on what the size of the property is? Or, excuse me, how many will be on in a development? I understand there's supposed to be 20 per acre.
Yep.
But if you took, just an example, Furtaw Field is supposed to be 3.3 acres. That's over 60 of those tiny homes on that block. Picture that. Further, what about overcrowding? Do you want that next to you? Have you ever tried living in a tiny home? I actually think they're cool, and I would love to be able to say I can put them in my backyard for family or to rent out, but I don't know about a settlement of 60 or more, because I think the limit was up to 5 acres, if I read that correctly. That would be a heck of a lot of homes on that property. I just don't think that that has been given the opportunity for feedback from the public yet for something like that. Now, obviously, because of that big packet that you put together, I didn't get a chance to read all those little details. But from what I did read, I have concerns about overcrowding. And then the last item is that we don't want to make mistakes like we did with the Lake Street Hotel. Will all the costs be transparent up front so that any developer will bear that cost? Or will it be on each individual tiny home occupant? And I don't expect answers, but it is something that I'm sure most of the public was curious about. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Anybody else in the middle section? Okay. Going to the last section, we just have the press sitting there. Do you have public? No? Okay. All right, with that, we will wrap up our public comment section on the agenda. Moving on now to board comment on the agenda. Do we have any board comments this evening?
Which way are you starting?
I'll start at this end. Or do you want me to start over there?
Nope. I just have two. I think it was mentioned that we should do something for Sue Aller's efforts for the community here. She's done a lot, fabulous job in her role with the state in helping us out and getting funding. So I guess I'd like to look at a future date, putting a proclamation together that's something that we would enact as a board and publicly acknowledge her. And I'd even add Ms. Swickert into that as well for her service to the community as we're getting towards the end of her employment reign, that we look at a proclamation for her as well. That's it.
Okay. Jamie?
I have nothing.
Down on the right, Mr. Cummings, Mr.
I'll toss
Spencer?
out a quick one. Josh may appear not to pay attention, but that's because he's typing up the words that you say. And he's focused on the computer because he's trying to keep up with as fast as we speak. So I appreciate where you're coming from, but other than that, thanks for coming out.
Tim, did you have anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm very happy and very proud of the fact that I've been representing this township at the Air Force meetings prior to the RAB, before those were even created. That was the BRAC meetings. And I've enjoyed what we've accomplished. We haven't accomplished nearly enough. It's an insatiable topic. We need to get so much more done. And to Ms. Wisterbroth's point, you know, it is a very large tumor, and it's not removed in a short period of time. I very much appreciate the value and the existence of now, not just for this community, but for our entire country, which is impacted by PFAS, not to mention the world, frankly. But I think we've done a good job, and I also think that communication, unfortunately, had become a problem recently, that was noted by Mr. Sutton. I wasn't aware of some of these points that were raised as an example, but I'd like to see whatever this issue is, and I'm going to reread this memo since this is the first I had seen it as well, and see if we can't come together on how we're going to solve this and move this forward, because we can't keep having these kind of situations creating dissension among us as a seven-member board. We have to be able to operate together and function. Let's see, there was another point. It was when people come up during public comment and they say that they've submitted requests for an agenda for a conversation to have with us, or to have some topic brought to this board, and it's being ignored. I have to say, it really concerns me, because I don't see all of these. I mean, I don't think that people send them always to the entire board. So I just want to say, if you feel that that is actually the case, then send it to the entire board. Don't just send it to an individual who you think might be responsible, even if it was Tammy, the superintendent. Because I think when there's more visibility and there's more interest and agreement that that topic needs to be raised, then we get board agreement, and we get the support for that topic to be raised to the public in a forum like this. And that's all I had. Thank you very much.
I just had clarification. I don't know if it was misunderstood. I appreciate everything now does, and again, I'll reiterate previous comments I've said before. You get to work without a lot of the rules that we have, and I love that. This is what we need in our community, and I just want to make sure that on our end, we're doing everything the way we need to support you and for us to go forward, much like Tim is saying tonight, the communication. That needs to happen. I don't like going into meetings as much as I don't imagine anybody else, and having stuff thrown at you from the side, much as we talk about an ambush, but these are things that we deal with in our offices daily. Daily, we have people coming to us, and we get this little bit of information. When I have to spend a day of my time or more to track down who said something that got to a point that it's an issue in the superintendent's office or at our level, That's really my only concern. I appreciate everything now does. I see you guys getting it done there. And I just want to make sure that we are not going to stop the progress we're making. I feel just in the last year and a half, it's almost like a snowball now. We have a lot of stuff going on. We've had the presentations. We're addressing the blood tests and everything else that have finally come through, and that is all the work in the community. And I would like everybody to understand that it's not against the community members or anything else. I simply, as the township clerk, always want to make sure we are doing our best to follow all the rules and make sure that we are not misconstruing anything else. And just like we have the chamber, we have now, and we have all of these organizations in town, our Rotary, Lions Club, all these people put in, this is what makes our community great, is the people can band together and do these things. And I just want to, again, make sure that we're doing it correctly here, but that is never a slam on our community members and Ms. Wusterbarth and all the work that now has done, and all of the people who have brought in. I've learned, I can't tell you how much, just basically drinking from a fire hose, so I apologize if sometimes it comes off rigid, but I'm catching up to you and others who are in there, and you guys do have a lot of information, and all I really have to look at is when we got in a standoff with the Air Force before and got basically shunned. I want to make sure that door to communication is always open and that we can fight together and make sure we're following the rules on our end and supporting our citizens that are pushing on the other side. I just wanted to clarify that and again say thank you for all of the hard work you guys do. It's amazing, and I'm still catching up to you guys. I don't know how you guys keep all of this in your head, so I apologize if I sound stupid or come off less informed, but I know Tim as well as Ms. Wusterbarth, they've been in this a long time, and the information you get in these RAB meetings, I would encourage everybody to attend and get involved and see what's going on. The more input we have, the better we can go after this whole situation. And again, our water projects, making sure we have municipal water, those 3 points that Ms. Wusterbarth listed, that is our community goal. We need to make sure everybody has fresh water. We need to make sure that the base is cleaned up and remediation is done. I live on the base. I can't believe how many people go down to the marsh and are over there fishing when they move in for Coletta from out of town and stuff. And a lot of them don't know the things we know about what's going on out there. So again, it's not something I take lightly. I'm trying to catch up. I appreciate everybody's patience. And if I do something wrong, say something wrong, or come off a little rigid, please correct me, inform me. I appreciate people giving me that information, and I feel my role on this board is always going to be to call out things I may not understand or I think are wrong. And if you guys can explain that to me or make me understand it, I appreciate it. I'm here to help everybody, but I want to make sure we're doing it right. And that's all I got.
Okay, all right. With that, I have no comment, and I will make a motion.
And I'm very sorry, but I actually forgot to bring up an announcement that I wanted to make because I was so focused on the other stuff that I needed and wanted to say as well. So one more tack here. I just wanted to announce so that anyone in the community who isn't aware of this, has to do with Consumers Energy Hydro Dam meetings that are coming up. They're in fact, one is, well, we're tonight on the 26th. There's basically what it is that the Consumers Energy hydro dams are coming up for relicensing, and they're getting community feedback on each of the dams, and this includes the Mayo Dam, the Foot Dam, Cook Dam, Alcona Dam, and Loud Dam. So there's a meeting, they're almost every night. Mayo Dam was tonight. Tomorrow is Foot Dam, September 27th at the Oscoda High School Auditorium at, pardon me, it's 5:30 p.m. It's when it begins with an open house and informal greeting, and then continuing with a formal presentation and a Q&A period at 6 p.m. That is the one for Foot Dam tomorrow, and then Cook Dam is the next night on Wednesday the 28th, once again in Oscoda High School Gymnasium, not the auditorium. So 27th, 28th, those are local, and I just wanted to give you all that information. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. All right, I make a motion, we adjourn then at 9:07.
So moved.
Thank you.